In-depth. Investigative. This is KXAN News, today at 8.
First, it's not an easy thing to talk about, but there is legal protection for people known as whistleblowers. That can be anyone at work that unveils inappropriate or illegal action of a company or a fellow employee. Well, joining us today is Tommy Jacks. He's an attorney that has gone to bat for whistleblowers to talk about this issue. Thank you so much for being here this morning.
Thank you, Brian.
Well, let's talk about whistleblowing and maybe what classifies as whistleblowing.
Whistleblowers, in the sense we're talking about, are individuals who discover and report fraudulent activity, usually by their employer or former employer, sometimes by a governmental agency they work for, and can actually bring lawsuits for the government in federal cases to recover money, and if the government succeeds in those cases, the whistleblower receives a share of the recovery.
And we have seen quite a bit of this, I guess, in Texas with regard to medical care and whatnot.
Absolutely. The Texas Attorney General's office, with whom my firm recently handled a case, has recovered over $250 million of funds that the state was cheated out of as their share of Medicaid funds through medical fraud.
We look at one of the more popular cases in recent history with the Enron collapse. Was that a case of whistleblowing? You
know, actually, as a result of Enron, there was federal legislation passed which now has made it easier for whistleblowers to report that kind of corporate fraud. There's a statute called the Dodd-Frank Law, and individuals who report corporate fraud to the SEC can, if more than $1 million is recovered by the federal government in those cases, can receive 10 to 30% of the recovery themselves. Recently, one federal whistleblower received over $100 million award
compensation
because his information helped the federal government recover hundreds of millions of dollars that had been fraudulently in violations of the SEC laws. Yeah.
So if you are someone that senses some wrongdoing, you know about some wrongdoing within your company or a fellow employee, what action should you take?
Well, what you should do is, first of all, gather evidence. Second, keep it to yourself. Don't publicly report it, because that could jeopardize the government's case. See a lawyer and get help. In federal cases, the Department of Justice is the agency you report to, and how that's done and done properly is an important part of knowing whether the whistleblower's case will ever succeed.
It feels like almost a game of shadows, almost walking on eggshells. If you are the person that senses the wrongdoing, what are some of the challenges you face as people come forward?
Well, we represented a man named Alan Jones, a fraud investigator in Pennsylvania, who